in brightest day, in blackest night. All other podcasts tremble in fright. Losers cower before the power. Oranges lust and blues you can trust. Indigos feel and white ones heal. Yellow scare and green ones dare. That sapphire love and black hands glove will rock your foundation without hesitation. Chad and Marge face evil's might. Respect their power, for they'll make you see the light.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chad Bokelman.
I'm Mark Marble.
And this is the LanternCast.
Episode 434.
Yeah, tonight we are talking about the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV series, as well as the new Marvel trailer for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Yes, we are. For some reason, I wanted to say, before I checked, for some reason I thought this episode was 435. I don't know why it was. I don't know why. Maybe just because we've been doing so many lately. But then I went back and I checked, and oh no, it's only 434.
All right. Well, which one do you wanted to go with first?
Let's do the main course first. What were your overall thoughts on Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Either in context to, I know I want to talk about it in relation to WandaVision just at some point, so I just don't want to box you into how you want to tackle that question. So if you want to juxtapose it with WandaVision, you can. If you just want to deal with your initial thoughts entirely on this series, that's fine. But I was curious what your overall thoughts were about what we got in the tone and everything.
I enjoyed it. I think it gave us, that Marvel feel back. I felt a little, obviously a lot of Marvel in it, but kind of even felt some Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. vibes from it. So it felt like a nice sort of crossover. In a way, I guess in terms of the WandaVision, I guess I think it really proved the point that I had. I don't know if I made this when we were talking about WandaVision. I can't remember if I did or not. That it's almost better that WandaVision came out first, because if this came out first, people would be like, the feel would be what people expect from the MCU at this point. And when they finally got that back to get something as strange as WandaVision, they might have been a little more off-put by it. But because people were so starved for Marvel stuff, they were more accepting of WandaVision. So it was almost better that it came out first. I still really feel that way. But I don't know. I really enjoyed this series. I felt like it ended, I don't know, a little Robert Venditti-ish, a little, it was fun. That sounds, now I wish I hadn't said that, but it was fine. It was a good ending. It was okay. It just didn't really feel like I don't know. I don't want to say a Marvel ending, but it just didn't feel quite as, I don't know what I'm trying to say there. Maybe through the course of talking about it, we'll figure it out. But
anticlimactic a little.
Yeah, I guess. A little. I just wasn't really feeling the ending as much on that one. But it was fine. It was a good series. It felt Marvel. I really enjoyed Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan. I thought they did a great job, carrying that stuff over and talking about the weight of these responsibilities and what it means and so on and so forth. I thought it was a good movie, a good TV series, and I guess it could have made a good movie too. I don't know. I keep saying with these series, I wish I could see them all, kind of back to back, without any breaks or anything like that, or any credits or any of that stuff, just to sort of get a cinematic feel for it, like a cinematic view option. And I think this really puts you in that mindset. But no, I definitely enjoyed it.
I think, well, I mean, we did talk about the whole WandaVision versus timing wise, that it probably worked in its favor coming out first.
Yeah.
Because we did that. Yes. So, I mean, people, obviously, there were some people that were unhappy with the tone of WandaVision and that the first 2 episodes were slow, which Marvel, of course, knew, like we talked about, which is why they released the first 3 for screeners, because they knew the first 2 would have gotten the same reaction out of reviewers as the fans reacted to it. Plus, they dumped the first 2 on the first night, so they knew people would. You got the 2 most dry episodes out of the way quick, and then after that, it just kept building towards the crescendo. Yes, it probably worked in Marvel's favor having WandaVision come out first, because yes, we were all starved for Marvel, for MCU content, so it made people would have been more willing to jump ship and probably been more vocal against the what the hell are we getting here if this had come out first. So I think, once again, not by plan but by luck of the draw, Marvel caught a break here, which seems to be their MO for the most part. I mean, eventually that's not going to work, but at the moment, they keep coming up and getting a big hit with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 9th, no matter what. So I do agree, touching on using your points as a jumping on point for me. I do agree the ending the last episode was a bit anticlimactic. It was a bit rushed in certain parts of it were rushed. It was really odd too if you look at the series overall, it certainly was uneven from a pacing perspective. There were some episodes that were really action-packed, and there were some episodes that there was very little that happened at all. Obviously, the first episode, Sam and Bucky weren't together at all. You have episode 5 where all the big action sequence between Sam, Bucky, and John Walker was all in the first 10 minutes of the episode, and that pretty much was the only real action sequence and a consequence in that episode. So then rolling into the final episode, the main threats, were dealt with with a decent amount of time left in that episode. So that was an interesting choice. I do think that it also, let's talk about, before I delve into the stuff I wasn't as big a fan of, let's talk about stuff I did enjoy. I did enjoy the character development, especially, clearly everybody loves Zemo. Zemo was, Daniel Bruhl's Zemo was the breakout star of this 6-episode series. Almost everybody liked getting more of the exploration of Zemo and getting to see what makes him tick. So I think his addition which on the surface did make sense when you first knew he was coming back. You figured he was going to be like the main antagonist. The reality was the role that he played in this was very good, and and we'll talk about this too. We haven't seen the last of him, period. So that was good. But the character development with Sam and Bucky was really good, because when you really think about it, we really haven't had character development with Bucky since, if we had any at all, we haven't had any since the first Avenger, which was 10 years ago. Because we barely have seen him, and he's been either Winter Soldier or Winter Soldier-esque pretty much every single time that we saw him, and he barely had any time on the screen in Infinity War and Endgame, when he was already deprogrammed, which was a nice flashback scene too, to the moment when he realized he was completely deprogrammed by Shuri. So the character development there was good. Some of the stuff I didn't like, that they seem to force a lot of things in this, like John Walker. It's like at the end of episode 4, we're supposed to, everybody in quotes, you're supposed to hate John Walker for what he did and getting caught on cam, killing somebody with Cap shield. And then by episode 6, we're all supposed to be okay that John Walker's fighting alongside Bucky and doing the right thing. And don't get me wrong, John Walker is from a comics perspective too, is supposed to be a complex character. He's more like an anti-hero. He's not really a 100% hero. He's certainly not a villain. He's not Steve Rogers, but no one's Steve, which of course Zemo points out beautifully about the super soldier formula and the serum and the way it affects people, that pretty much has never affected anybody the way it's affected Steve, which goes back to the origin of it with Erskine, the idea that it magnifies whatever you have inside of you. So if you're a good person, it makes you great. And if you're an evil person, it just takes you to the Red Skull kind of level. And if most people are not on either extreme, so whatever your dominant qualities are going to be brought out. So I just think they rushed a lot of stuff, and I do think they really, really I'm going to let you talk before we get into any political things that came out in this show. But I just think in general they walked but this will lead into it. The idea of they walked a lot of lines in this series, and I think they walked a lot with the idea that making too many people seem like they were gray. That there was which is ironic when I'm going to say this, but people will understand what I mean considering the nature of the show. That on some levels, sometimes people are black and white, and they're not all gray. And they seem to really want to make you think that almost everybody was not really a hero or not really a villain. Zemo was gray. Walker was gray. They really, in the beginning, they wanted you to think Carly was gray because of conceptually because of what she was fighting for. Though as the series went on, she became less and less, I think, relatable, which may completely have been by design. But they kind of keep echoing the idea that you're supposed to at least sympathize and empathize with the cause, but yet she's gone to such an extreme, it's kind of hard to. But I think there's a lot of, they really do that, and even Sharon to a certain extent, which is a whole nother topic. If Sharon is really, Sharon, not Skrull Sharon, that the idea that there's so many people that are shades of gray in this, and it just seems, which is a concept that we see a lot of that being put out there, that there's some people I think that really believe that like the majority of people in the world are like kind of like 48% good and 48% bad, and it's that final 4% that determines which way you go. And that's true for some people, but I don't think it's literally not so black and white in that area. Some people are just good and some people aren't. And that's one of the things I noticed, that it's a lot of grayness, and I think, and I'm going to let you come back on, and then we'll talk into some of the, obviously the political overtones raised in this show too, regarding walking lines and things like that.
I mean, it may be gray, but it kind of has to be when you deal with the themes that they're dealing with, because, at the end, especially given with what he says to the senator about Carrie and the Flag Smashers and their point and everything, and you don't want to see what this, version 2.0 will be. And then you also have to throw in the idea that you're dealing with themes like, what's it mean to serve your country? Does it mean to just blindly follow orders? Is that truly serving your country? Or is it, doing it to serve the ideals that you believe your country stand for? Does that sometimes mean going against the orders you're given? The idea of, did I earn this sort of a thing? There's that theme involved in this quite a lot. Some self-doubt, I guess, on the part of Falcon, and obviously some self-doubt and deprecation happening on the part of Bucky as well. So there's a lot to play with here. It's just, but the themes they're dealing with are and are going to be very shades of gray, because there's really no clean-cut answer to those sorts of questions.
I mean, I see a lot of that, but I think if you do too much shading of gray, then I think that in a way it almost defeats the purpose on occasion or at times, because not everything is gray. Just like not everything is black and white, not everything is gray. Conceptually, with the idea, which is a cool idea of how governments deal with all these people that are brought back all of a sudden after the blip and after the snap, and when the blip occurs and everybody comes back, and you have to deal with all these millions of people that are brought back, and then you got to take care of them, and you got to find a place for them. And there's interesting questions there. But like you look at Carly, I mean, I don't think she had her moments when I think she was relatable, but I don't think she was particularly likable. And you pretty much from the point she killed Lamar going forward, she was pretty much off the deep end, because she didn't really care about how many people she had to kill, to help her cause. And again, the end justifying the means thing is sometimes it's necessary, but oftentimes, probably most of the time, it's a really dangerous way to view the world, that the ends justify the means no matter what. And that's, you kind of end up going down that road of the Nietzsche quote of, those who hunt monsters have to be careful, paraphrasing, because, when you look long into the abyss also looks into you, that you have to be careful not to become what you're trying to fight against. So I get there had to be gray, but I think when you look at the characters being gray, and then they have, and then obviously with some of the political overtones to the show, and, with Sam and Isaiah and things like that, that there was a whole lot of gray. Now, mind you, I think overall the show did what it walked the line often, very often, teetering on that line. And for some people, they didn't teeter, they went over the line. For me, I think for the most part, they successfully navigated walking that line, but there certainly was a whole lot of walking of it across the board. And it really got me concerned to the point where I really thought, I didn't really think they were going to do it. I was afraid they really were going to do something to kind of like really crap on Cap's legacy because of shit that really had nothing to do with him, like stuff related to Isaiah and things like that, stuff that he would have no knowledge of and certainly wasn't active for. He was on ice when any of that was going down. But I thought they were really, really it seemed like they were getting dangerously close to walking the line and crapping on, Cap's legacy. And even the way they had Sam approach it or dealing with it. So, but balancing that out, I like the fact that you really you really understand why the shield in particular means a lot to Bucky because of what it represents. Not just because it was Steve's, but because of who Steve was, and also, so that legacy that I do like why he was so protective of it and why he gave Sam such a hard time about giving it up so freely when obviously Steve picked him for a reason.
Yeah, makes sense.
The stuff with Isaiah, I thought was now I was curious about your opinion on this because obviously when we first meet Isaiah, you kind of get the brief little, obviously the backstory with him fighting Bucky and snapping off half his metallic arm was kind of cool. But when you get the first background about what happened to him, I think you're certainly supposed to essentially take from that the government used him, spit him out, and then they just threw him in jail because they didn't know what else to do with him, i.e. implying that probably if it wasn't because he was black, it was easier to do because he was black. Now, I thought it was interesting in episode 5 when you actually get the real story that led to him being, the government doing what they did. That again, dealing with the idea of things not being necessarily so black and white. But and again, this is how I interpret it. I don't know if this is one of those examples of maybe more of, the showrunners thought this actually will make our point seem stronger of how the government mistreated him, and that may not have like stuck the landing on that with everybody. Because to me, when you get the real backstory on what happened with him, when the other super soldiers like him that survived the experiment were captured, as governments often do, as we've seen in every spy movie known to man, that the government makes it clear that, hey, you get caught, we're going to disavow you any knowledge of you. That they knew that once they got, which would be a hell of a story to figure out how they were able to capture all these super soldiers at one time, because you think that'd be pretty hard to do. That the government decided, well, they did the Palpatine Dooku thing, that they were too dangerous to be left alive, so they were planning on bombing the POW camp where they were, just to make sure that either by volunteering it, by torture, or just by experimenting on them, that the enemy couldn't get anything out of them, basically because from the super soldier project or formula. And obviously Isaiah found out about that, broke out of where he was, and went single-handedly rescued them. And he got, quote unquote, rewarded for that by being thrown in jail. I thought that was an interesting story, because obviously the whole experimenting on him when he was in prison was, you can't justify that on any level whatsoever. But it was interesting because to me that they added a little more depth to what happened with him. And while it was as clearly is wrong, to me, if you look at it step back and look at it from the government's perspective, obviously they probably knew long before this happened that Bradley was not Steve Rogers from the perspective of the Steve Rogers that existed in World War II, who was, and like you said, about following orders. How does that fit into the scheme of being a hero and being a soldier and things like that? That Steve clearly, for the most part, was a follow order kind of guy once he became Captain America during his original phase of being Captain America. I'm sure they realized early on that, and understandably so, based on his background too, but Bradley was not that guy. He was not going to be one to just blindly do stuff. So the fact that he did what he did and went against orders and potentially created a lot more problems for them, especially if it didn't work. If he did, maybe that factored in too. Even if he tried that and it failed, and he got captured too, the idea that you could understand why they would see him as a loose cannon, where he was dangerous and they wouldn't know what to do with him. they couldn't trust him to be on the same page as them. Now, I just thought it was interesting because, again, to me, if you're trying to make the point that the government was 100%, they treated them 100% like shit. I don't know if that completely reinforces that idea or adds, again, the magic word for the episode, adds a little more gray into it. That it may not have been the easiest decision in the world for them potentially either, because he obviously was valuable to them, and clearly he was the best of the group. So I was just curious about like what your thoughts were, because to me I didn't think that helped their cause. It may not have hurt it, but I don't think it hurt their cause when they were trying to lay on the idea of how mistreated Bradley was from serving his country. He clearly was mistreated, but I don't know when you get the full details of that story if it makes a stronger case for it or not.
Can you rephrase it? I'm not really sure what you're trying to say. Like I'm listening to you.
Do you think when we got the full details of what led them to for them throwing Bradley in jail, do you think that reinforces the point they seemingly made when we first met Bradley, that the government more or less just spit him up, used him, spit him up, spit him out, and then got rid of him mostly because of his color of his skin, but because they didn't know what else to do with him? Do you think by giving us the actual story that led to them doing that, do you think that adds more shades of gray to his story, or do you think it just reinforces how 100% shitty the government treated him?
I mean, I think it reinforces how shitty the government treated him. I think the way that he got treated by the government. So the first story that we got from the official, the story that we got from Isaiah himself, I think that makes, this is a man who's gone through the shit. This is a man who is damaged and embittered and so on and so forth. I think that is completely justified by everything that he experienced, and I think there's some equivalency to be made there, because if you view them treating him that way because of the color of his skin, he could he would also see the treatment that he received at the hands of the government because he disobeyed orders, or because either way, what the viewpoint that he is seeing on behalf of the government is that he's expendable. Either way, not just he is expendable, but that just soldiers in general, or the people who volunteered for the experiment or whatever, he believes that the government, or just white people in general, or whatever you're meant to believe there, views himself and then the others who are in the super soldier program or in his unit with him as expendable. But that's all the same thing, because the country views the country, or those people in general. What did he expect, basically, that he would be treated any differently? It's hard for me to put it directly into coherent words, because obviously I'm not a black man. So I'm trying to interpret Isaiah's point there in equating those two things to being, locked away because he was a black super soldier versus being locked away because he essentially disobeyed orders.
And the main reason, and one of the reasons why I wanted to ask, because when I watched that episode, my first thought was, hey, this is kind of interesting, because maybe Marvel's trying to add a little more, instead of just making it seem like, oh, they had no more use for him, they threw him in jail, and mostly they threw him in jail because he was black. They gave you actually a story that led to him being incarcerated. And to me, my initial reaction was, okay, so this is kind of Marvel kind of trying to maybe walk it back a little bit from making it all about race. And then I started thinking, well, some people could interpret it that way, but that may not necessarily have been what Marvel's intent was in throwing that stuff into the episode. That's what led me to ask that question. Plus, there's also the X factor in this, and this is another reason why I thought about it, is because clearly Isaiah Bradley is he's an unreliable narrator from the perspective that he has a dog in this fight. So while everything he's telling us may be absolutely true, there may be stuff that's, well, let's look at it from this point of view. Everything he's telling us could 100% be true, and there could be nothing else to it. But he has a dog in the fight, so we don't know if that's the case. We don't know if he's leaving out stuff in the story that's valid. We don't know if his emotion isn't coming into it, and it's the story is being tainted a certain way. So the reason why I thought that was interesting was because, again, to me, like when you get the details, you don't necessarily know if it was a 100% easy decision for the government to say, oh, let's just screw the other super soldiers. That might not have been an easy decision for multiple reasons, even if it's just because look at all these valuable assets. These are the only people that survived these experiments, and now we're going to have to pretty much blow them all to hell. So it may not have been anything because they had any value of them as human beings, but just from an operative perspective. But it may not have been the easiest decision in the world to just do that. Oh, we don't care because they're black, which, so I think it does add a layer. I mean, obviously what they were doing to him after they threw him in jail was a different story. I mean, that you can just like, you can't really justify that, even like whatever they were going to do to the other super soldiers that the enemy was going to do, or what they were afraid they were going to do by experimenting on them to try to, even if it was to try to reverse engineer the super soldier serum. But I just thought it was interesting that if they had just left that story the way, I know that part of the reason why they did that was probably to try to juxtapose that with what Steve did in First Avenger, even though technically Steve wasn't really a government operative when he did that. He still was just, funny man Captain America. He wasn't actually considered, a real soldier at that point by the government. But the idea that, I think they were trying to bookend what Steve did and the repercussions of that in the original Captain America with that, juxtaposing it. And it's true. But I just thought it was also interesting getting that there was a little more, because of the details of that story, that it certainly was not as black and white as, oh, okay, we've gotten all we can out of this guy and we don't know what to do with him. It's like, oh, he's black, we can throw him in jail, which is not entirely what they said for the first time you meet Isaiah, but certainly it's kind of implied that if not, that wasn't the reason. That certainly was, it certainly made it easier to do that at the very least. And then you get the full story and it's like, okay, you may not agree with it, but the government probably did see him as a problem after him figuratively and literally going off the reservation the way he did and potentially risking a lot of other things in the process of doing it, that they may have not really known what to do with him.
I think that part of the problem there is I think that the government has always viewed the super soldier program historically as expendable people, the people that were involved in it, because you kind of touched on it when you mentioned Steve, but if you really look at the first Captain America film, they're just looking to appease Erskine, right? That's his name?
Yes.
Yeah, they're just looking to appease Erskine, who developed this serum, and he gets to choose who takes it. Now, basically, what they're looking for is proof of concept. The idea is once Steve is, enhanced and everything, then they can run tests and make sure that he is a fit soldier, and then they can roll out the program to other super soldiers. But Erskine is killed and his formula dies with him. That's the problem that the government ends up having to deal with. So even in a way, Steve was what they didn't want to end up with Steve in the first place. Steve was not their end game. Steve is just what they ended up being stuck with. I think the interesting parallel there between Steve and Isaiah is when it comes to what they did, because what Isaiah did is almost exactly what Steve did, and going to rescue the captured soldiers from the Red Skull's camp, because what's his name was already writing condolence letters. They had already written those soldiers off. They were saying, we're not sending anybody in there. We're not going to go get those POWs. Steve then disobeyed orders, went to get them, rescued them all, and brought them back. But in this case, the only difference being the government apparently initiated an attack the people that Isaiah was rescuing were actual super soldiers, and so they wanted to get rid of any evidence or any potential for the enemy to get their hands on the formula or anything like that. So I think that portion is something that can't be left out of the equation, is because for the most part, other than the difference I just stated, what Steve did and what Isaiah did are almost exactly the same thing.
Yes, for the most part. Again, like I said, other than the fact that clearly when Isaiah was not by choice, he may have been a soldier by choice, but he certainly was not a volunteer in the super soldier formula of the program by choice, nor was he being an operative once he survived the experiment by choice. But the point was he still was a super soldier, and the government was using him as an asset, kind of like how the Soviet Union and then Hydra was using Winter Soldier. But Steve at the time when he did that, was not really Captain America in a heroic sense. He was Captain America still that was like the first thing that he did to be the Captain America that he became. But he wasn't one way or the other. The government really didn't have they had control over him, but they didn't have the control over him that they would have had if he was already an active combatant. And he really wasn't at the time. He was just sick of being on the sidelines. He's sick of being used, to raise money and be a propaganda tool. He wanted to do what he could do. So, but that's it. But I'm sure that's the reason. But at the end of the day, that's the reason why they had that story be so similar. I'm sure because it does kind of juxtapose with Steve's. But I think again there's a little more to the way the story was being told, especially considering again Isaiah's not, because he is so emotional about it and because of the different background and everything, doesn't mean his telling of the story is inaccurate, but it does make him. It makes him certainly it does not make him a unbiased narrator. He has a dog in the fight, so it makes you wonder if it colors his interpretation a little bit. But
how old is Isaiah supposed to be? When did
I don't remember in the show how old he's supposed to be. Obviously, what was that it was in the 50s? It was in the 50s, right, that he was doing the stuff that he was doing. So
I mean, I guess so. So I mean, then you have to realize that this is a black man who has lived through some systemic racism, and so he had the what happened to him as a super soldier, and then kind of lived beyond his life expectancy, I guess, maybe, to see, to have everything that's happened in the country and things like that. Just, I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but just.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So. And
again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I think that how the government treated him was fair. Mm-hmm. They clearly wasn't, but I thought when they went into the more of the details, from my perspective, I thought that was less, but no pun intended again, by making it less black and white about what led them to doing what they did with him, that it also weakened the argument that it was done certainly racially as the main motivation why, as opposed to we have this loose cannon that we really can't do anything with and we can't control, so we're going to have to take him off the playing field because we can't trust him to be left out there either to his own devices, nor can we trust him to be an operative anymore. So we don't have many choices what to do with him. So right. I think there is an element of that, which again doesn't mean what they did was right, but if you put yourself in the government shoes and you have this, it's kind of like if you look at the Incredible Hulk. If the super soldier experiments with Blonsky had 100% worked, and we know he was not the most balanced guy even before he became the Abomination. If he really became like a Captain America like soldier, he might have been a very difficult, not in the beginning probably, but he could very well have gotten to the part where he was a loose cannon and just decided to do what he wanted. Then what would the government have to do? They'd either have to kill him or they'd have to make sure they locked him up somewhere. So it's that same concept that sometimes, again, the Revenge of the Sith thing, he's too dangerous to be left alive. But except they did leave, they technically did leave Isaiah alive. They just incarcerated him. Not just out of the kindness of their hearts, because they still wanted to experiment on him to figure out why the hell he was able to survive the experiment. So it was, it wasn't altruistic for them to do that. It was self-serving, but the point still is, it's the same concept. They needed to do something with him because he was too dangerous from their perspective. Right or wrong, that was their perspective.
Yeah, makes sense.
So what do you think of Sharon? that was another thing that seemed, if Sharon is really Sharon, some of the stuff, I mean, again, this show is supposed to take place like 6 months, I think, after Endgame. So, and Sharon was supposedly snapped away. So how the hell does she have this empire that she built in 6 months that she's able to do all this? I mean, yes, she could have been working on it before she was snapped away, because you assume that she's been on the outs ever since Civil War. So I guess that might be the explanation, but it just seemed like, but still, she would have been gone the point is she would have been gone for 5 years before she came back. So even if she started building something, it wouldn't be in her control anymore.
So wasn't there, it was around the death of Captain America in the comics, right? Sharon was the one who killed Cap.
I believe that is correct.
In the comics, and then she was like under the control of Red Skull
and Faust, wasn't it? Wasn't it Faust too?
I don't remember.
I think it was Faust.
But because of Sharon's history of being controlled by others in the comics, it makes me think that there's a possibility that she's not herself there. And then of course you have the Skrull options, which is I think she's also had a history in the comics with Skrulls too. So forgive me guys, I don't read Marvel as fervently as I do with DC, but I seem to remember I know for sure she had mind control stuff around the time of the death of Cap, because that all happened right after Civil War.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and I definitely read, I for sure read Civil War. So, yeah, I just, I don't know. It makes me think she's either, there's a Skrull, something involving the Skrulls or something involving mind control, because I don't know. I don't want Sharon to go down that road. If, even if, I don't like the idea of her being set up to be like a jilted lover. You know what I mean? Like she's like they're trying to make it, because she's a good character. In a way, she's a legacy character. What she means to the Carter family, what she means to the constancy of service and trust and honor. Like, she's one of the good ones from S.H.I.E.L.D. You know what I mean? Like she means a lot in the MCU, despite how, quote unquote little she's appeared. She has a role, and she has some meaning to her character. So I don't want them to turn her into simply just a jilted lover.
Yeah, I can see that. That might not be, obviously, I'm sure that would not be the explanation we get for why it's really Sharon. And I know some people say, oh, that'd be a cop out, if she was a Skrull. But hey, the reality is, we know they're doing a variation. It seemingly isn't going to be, it's not a movie, it's a TV show. So it's going to have probably going to be less involved and maybe have less major implications than it normally would. But we know they're doing the Secret Invasion TV show. So the only way that's going to work is if some people we don't think are Skrulls are going to be Skrulls, or else what's the point? Yeah. So somebody's going to have to be a Skrull that we don't want to be, or else there's no point in doing this. So Sharon on the surface would be a good candidate for multiple reasons. Some of the things we talked about, it's like, yeah, her building this organization, and even if she was building it after Civil War, well, the point was she was gone for 5 years, because if the real Sharon Carter got snapped away. So that meant, unless she faked it, unless she was like the teacher's wife in Far From Home who faked being snapped away, that the reality is that no matter what she built, she was gone for 5 years. How is she going to get it back in 6 months? So, but if the only thing that would point to it maybe being true is you go back to when we first met Sharon Carter, she's always been literally playing both sides. She was setting Steve up because she was supposed to set Steve up as being a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. to keep an eye on him and things like. So it's not exactly in her not in her nature to kind of be duplicitous and things like that. I was disappointed in that. Yes, they clearly were setting her up to be the power broker for a while. I mean, I think that was one. I mean, not because it leaked out or anything, but I think most people thought she was the power broker based on what we saw in the show. So I don't think that was a big surprise at all. It was, I mean, it's still kind of weird. She put herself in a position to get shot in the final episode. You think would have been more prepared for that and not to get shot? But I thought that, I don't know. It's intriguing. It's intriguing what they're gonna do with her. But again, that whole last episode. Now I wish we had more. I wish that we had a better or more after credit scenes. I know supposedly, and I guess we'll know for sure once we see Black Widow, that originally there was supposed to be a scene where Florence Pugh's character Yelena goes to see Zemo at the raft to basically start recruiting him for the Thunderbolts. And supposedly they opted not to do that since our character technically hasn't been introduced in the MCU yet. They decided to save that for the Black Widow movie, maybe an after credit scene in the Black Widow movie, as opposed to sticking it here. But originally was supposed to be here since Black Widow was supposed to be out like at least 4 to 6 months before Cap and now it's Cap and the Winter Soldier, but Falcon and the Winter Soldier came out. So I mean, I did like the show, and yes, you were going back to what you said earlier. 100%, this is very much like your traditional Marvel show / movie, exactly what you would expect it. So there's lots of cool things in it. The action sequences were really good. I did like getting Sam's family, and some background on that. I mean, I know some could make the case that the role they played in this in the show, other than to show him being grounded and to have that moment when Carly threatens his sister, that really it wasn't that super relevant to what was going on. But I didn't have a big issue with it, getting some base, because we haven't got a whole lot of background on Sam either, other than his military history. We never knew much about Sam. So I obviously the ties to Wakanda were cool in this, but the Dora Milaje, that was nice, not unexpected when when Zemo was loose. I thought it was weird that they turned him over to the raft, though. I thought that was kind of weird. You figured they would want to incarcerate him themselves, that they wanted to make sure he wasn't getting out. Maybe nobody knows Steve broke everybody out from the raft, but you would think Wakanda of all people would know that, hey, it's not impossible.
Yeah, let's see. I'm just trying to think of some of the other stuff that I thought was interesting. I like that we got some focus with Sam and his family, the stuff that happened there, the stuff that was going on with the bank and all that stuff with the boat and just kind of. I like that the community came together to help them out before he became Captain America. I thought that was cool. That because if it would have happened after, you would have been like, is the community coming together for him, or are they coming together because he's Cap? Now he's already a hero in his own right, and obviously very respected in his community and things like that. So, but I do like that, that it really helped drive home that everybody came together for the family and for what the family means to the community and things like that. I did like the stuff with Bucky. I do remember sitting, was it the first episode when you could tell Bucky was struggling with telling that old man?
Yes. I think that was the first episode.
I out loud said to nobody in particular, because nobody was in the room with me when I was first watching that first episode. I was like, Bucky, don't you fucking do it. Don't you fucking do it. Like, I was just sitting there saying it out loud to myself in the room, because I was like, this old man's been having lunch with this guy. He's like his best friend. And all of a sudden you're going to ruin this old guy's life just to make yourself feel better. Like, I was all kinds of pissed at Bucky. I was like, don't you do it just to make yourself feel better. But I like that they held off on that to make it make sense, to make it a little less selfish, to make it, about giving the man some closure rather than about making Bucky feel better. So that was cool.
Yeah, I agree. It was. The conversation between Sam and Bucky were good as the show went on. The idea that you go back to Sam, Sam's dealing with, the PTSD and everything he was doing back when we first met him in Winter Soldier, that it is appropriate that he would be once he and Bucky got past some of the animosity that was left over just from being different people, seemingly on different paths, and in a way having different relationships with Steve and things like that, and the legacy thereof. that once they were able to relate as people, that he would understand. Now he would understand what Bucky's going through on many levels because of what he's dealt with, not just himself but with helping others. But he would be able to maybe make Bucky see stuff that he really couldn't or wasn't ready to see up to that point. So I do like the idea of that when he tells Bucky that basically that he was avenging is what he was doing, like going after some of the bad people that took advantage of him and manipulated him, and then just trying to apologize to try to get, like you said, to try to make yourself feel better, but not necessarily bringing closure to the people that who you've hurt inadvertently. So I think doing that change, I think that really, I did like that. I think their relationship was one of the highlights, clearly, of the show, like it was supposed to be.
Yeah, 100%. I really enjoyed it. I for a moment I wasn't cool with them doing the whole redemptive arc sort of. That wasn't really redemptive, but the arc with U.S. Agent. But at the same time, I know that U.S. Agent isn't necessarily isn't supposed to be the out and out bad guy. I think in the comics he always was supposed to be that sort of gray area you spoke about, right?
Yeah. So
he's not supposed to be just cut and dry bad guy. It makes me wonder what the hell what's her name's role is.
No, Contessa there, Val.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess she was another character that I think, and maybe she will show up in Black Widow, but I think she was another character that the rumor has that she was supposed to premiere in that movie. But obviously she's going to have a role, whether her role is going to be with the Thunderbolts, whether her role is going to be with the Dark Avengers, or their variations that they do, or whatever version of that they do. That I think I think that will be interesting to see. I think much like WandaVision, I think this did suffer from a lot of, we're so spoiled with MCU stuff and having big moments and big cameos and big after credit scenes that I think that it's hurting the TV shows because our expectations are too high, which is not all their fault. But I think this was another one. This was another series that I think that we really didn't get anything. We didn't get any big cameo or anything in the final episode. And even Julia Louis-Dreyfus's appearance in the last two episodes, that was cool. And I know, in all, and then the rumors were that there were rumors that her character was going to be the one that was going to be the surprise, the surprise Marvel character that, does exist in the comic books, but is going to be, premiere for the first time in Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
It has potential. I think I agree with you about Walker. Like I mentioned, I think they were really all over the map about Walker. It's like they want you to think, okay, he can, he's an acceptable alternative here. Then all of a sudden we're supposed to hate him, and then all of a sudden no, and now we're supposed to just automatically accept that. I mean, it's in the eye of the beholder, of course, but it's not like he literally just grabbed somebody off the street who was walking by and he killed them. I mean, they were not 100% innocent. They were not 100% innocent in the overall scheme of what was going on with the Flag Smashers. Was that the person that killed Lamar? No, but it's not like that person had no involvement in the Flag Smashers at all. So I guess that's part of how we can look. We can look the other way, at least a little bit about it. But I do think they were really all over the map with how they wanted us to feel about John Walker. And I think that only in a 6 episode run, I think that unevenness, especially with that character, I think didn't really resonate for me.
I mean, there's also almost, and I hate to say it, but I think there's also some parallels between Walker's story and Isaiah's story. You made me, now you're throwing me away. That sort of a thing. Yeah,
that is true. Even though they clearly didn't make him a super soldier, he chose that.
No, yeah, 100%.
But I know what you mean. It's like they used him up and spit him out too, because it's like they knew what he was, they knew who he was, and then when he needed them, they tossed him to the wolves.
Yeah, 100%.
So yes, I agree. I think there's I agree. There's a certain element of that you can't really deny there.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Okay. Anything else about Falcon and Winter Soldier?
Obviously, well, the one thing we found out pretty much on, I think it was on Friday, which of course they obviously knew this was on the horizon anyway, that the idea that now a Cap 4 starring Sam and Bucky is supposed to be in the early stages of, obviously, it's the wheels are in motion for that movie to be produced. Obviously, there's no time frame yet, and there's no release date, but it is a project that is going to be worked on. Whether, obviously, we have no idea whether that will involve Chris Evans, if Chris Evans really did sign his contract, which a lot of people still believe he absolutely did. But we will see. But the idea that we will have a Captain America 4 with focusing on Sam's version of Captain America along with Bucky. Question is when the hell they would do that. They're so far backlogged in movies. So far backlogged. We don't even have a release date for Guardians of the Galaxy yet. And yet or Fantastic Four or X-Men and so it's really hard to imagine this coming out anytime within like the next 4 years. Maybe 4. Maybe in the 4 year, but they have so many things. But it's interesting we heard that talk more about getting a second season of the show when you would think it'd be so much easier for now just to do a second season of the show.
Yeah.
I mean, this show absolutely perfectly would lend itself to a second season. While it was perfectly clear that WandaVision was always supposed to be a one-off for logical reasons. But I did enjoy it. It's obviously completely different tonally than WandaVision, but they've been very, very, very successful so far, and I think Marvel continue. I'm sure Loki will be just as interesting. Just kind of sucks we have to wait till June to get Loki, and then we don't even have a date for the next one, right? We don't even know whether it's what or is that What If? Is What If still supposed to come out during the summer? I don't remember.
Honestly not sure.
I don't remember anymore, but we certainly do not have a release date for Hawkeye yet. They have not given us a release date on that, even though I think that's still supposed to be this year.
Didn't they wrap filming on that?
They may have.
Have we talked about on air the change in the Black Widow? In terms of they have finally decided what to do with it?
I don't know if we talked about their dual release schedule for Black Widow of being on Disney Plus, where you have to pay the premium fee to watch it on Disney Plus, or you're going to be able to. What's the release date for that? The 5th, the 7th of July, whatever it is. In front of me. I could probably let's just. I know I'm pretty sure it's one of. Let's just move ahead on my calendar, and once I get to July, we probably can figure it out. It's probably must be the 9th. I'm guessing it's the 9th if they're releasing it on a Friday, unless it's a Wednesday release, but that wouldn't make any but either way, that when it comes out in the second, the first full week of July, that it's going to have a dual release, kind of like what Mulan did, even though Mulan didn't really play in many places here in the U.S. But by July, most theater chains are going to be open again. I'm not sure what the capacity will be yet. So, yeah, it's pretty set in stone now. Black Widow will come out, and there's really no reason, the way things are trending, to think that it shouldn't come out. But that'll be the first MCU movie we've had since Far From Home, like 2 years ago. Almost 2 years to the date, right? Because I know Far From Home was a July release too.
Yeah, I think so. So I guess so. So the release date of Black Widow is what?
I'm guessing it's the 9th if it's coming out on a Friday. Let's see what it says. Yes, July 9th.
Okay, so then 2 months later we have Shang-Chi.
Yes, and the Eternals is still supposed to be November. Or did they move that again? I no longer remember because they moved shit.
It's supposed to be November.
Yeah, which we still haven't seen the damn teaser trailer for. Don't get me wrong, I understand why they finally gave us one for Shang-Chi, because it's coming out first. But the point still is, it's still ridiculous that we haven't seen anything from that movie. But
so speaking of Shang-Chi,
yes, go ahead. You give your thoughts too, because you're much more looking forward to this project, or have always been looking forward to this project more than moi.
Yeah, I mean. I'm not familiar with the cast here. I'm not familiar with any of that, so I'm not really. I don't really have anything positive or negative that I'm bringing to the film from that. Nor do I have anything connected to the character in terms of the comics. But I've told this story I think once or twice on the air. But I've told the story a billion times of my father taking me to go see, or rather renting all the Godzilla movies as a kid and watching them with me in an order. I do remember. So there's a place here in Austin. Well, I say here in Austin. I've moved to Kyle now, just outside of Austin. But let's say here in Austin, that is called the Paramount Theater. It's one of those old downtown theaters that lots of cities have, like the Majestic in San Antonio and things like that. But they do summer movies and things like that. And I remember my dad took me to see like Monty Python and the Holy Grail over there and things like that. But one of the things we saw was like a marathon of Once Upon a Time in China. I don't remember if we saw all three. We definitely saw more than one. So it was probably like a double feature of 1 and 2. My dad really likes kung fu, sort of karate movies. I know he likes like Jackie Chan's Drunken Master, and he can like the silly ones, or he can like the whatever. But I do remember, just the seriousness of, and the seriousness of the plot and the quality of the fighting and stuff like that in Once Upon a Time in China. That was a great flick. Have you ever seen that movie?
I do not believe so.
Once Upon a Time in China is really, really good. Even with the fighting and everything, really good fight choreography and stuff in there. I've been sort of jonesing for a well done, kung fu movie for a while. Was it Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon that sort of changed the effects for kung fu or karate fights in movies?
Yeah, that kind of started with the wire stuff that carried over into the Matrix and everything else.
I never actually saw that movie, by the way. But it seems like, in watching this trailer, there's a little bit of that influence in there, but there's a lot of that just actual fight, just focusing on fight choreography as opposed to special effects or stuff like that. I mean, it's a Marvel movie, and there's going to be some mystical, magical sort of shit that's going to go down in this thing. So obviously there's going to be special effects, but there's actually, I felt in this trailer, a good balance of seeing what, the CGI budget is going towards versus also just seeing straight up fight sequences, which I thought was really fun and cool looking. I'm excited to see it. I'm obviously excited to see, of course, the mystery of, the real Mandarin in the MCU based on, hints of the Mandarin that we've seen in Iron Man and Iron Man 3 and things like that. And I think there's some potential there. I think, I've heard online for this to cross over with, forgive me, what's the character's name from Doctor Strange that was pissed at Strange at the end?
Baron Mordo.
Yeah, there's some potential for him to be involved, perhaps. There's potential for us to tie this property in with another, fighting kung fu type property that we've already seen from the MCU, which is Iron Fist. I think they probably want to make Shang-Chi his own thing and maybe want to distance themselves from Iron Fist. So I don't think that's as likely, but it still would be cool to see that tie in some way, shape, or form. It'd be one of the, probably first significant MCU film ties into the Netflix universe that they built. So it would be cool to see either way. I'm just I'm interested to see where they go with it. Honestly, I don't think. The problem I have with this trailer is you don't really get a sense of story from it. I don't necessarily know. Obviously there's a whole I trained you to be like me sort of a thing. You're my protege. You're supposed to take over. You're supposed to take my role over when I'm gone. Now you're refusing, sort of a thing. But I still don't really get a sense of anything other than sort of the basic beat. I would like the next trailer to really give me a picture of the story I'm going to be told. But I thought it was cool looking. There were some moments in it that felt a little out of place, but again, this is supposed to be a teaser. But guys, it's like a 2-minute. I'm so done with them calling these things teasers anymore. They put together a trailer. It's a fucking trailer. a teaser is like a few seconds to get you all hyped for the trailer or something. Like a 2-minute thing with dialogue and action sequences and finished effects, and that is not a teaser. But whatever. I think the next trailer that I want to see, I want to see more fight choreography without, giving away the whole farm there. I want to see more of what the story is. But no, I'm excited.
I mean, it's probably a teaser in the sense that, again, like you said, it doesn't really give you much of it gives you bare bones about relationships. Doesn't tell you much about the plot other than the fact that obviously Shang-Chi's going his own way, that kind of thing, and he's been doing his own thing for like the past 5 years, and he's just not wrapped up in wanting to follow in these dark footsteps. But there was nothing in the other than the Awkwafina stuff. I don't get the appeal of her. I think she's annoying. Her voice, I think, is extremely annoying. I know she's kind of been the drug of the moment the past few years, but I don't really get the appeal of her. I know, and that's just personal. So if you like her, that's great. But for me, that's certainly not a plus in this. It looks like it's a Marvel Kung Fu movie. And I like you said, I mean, I know your background with that, so I knew this was, even when they first announced this movie, that this was up your alley. I have memories and not strong attachments, but I do have an attachment to Shang-Chi from the perspective that I remember him, especially in the 70s, when that character was probably the biggest that it ever was, with the Master of Kung Fu and crossing over with other characters in the Marvel universe. But so I know who the character is, but this project never had a huge appeal to me. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it's a Marvel movie. I'm sure it'll be entertaining. I'm definitely going to see it. But did this movie make me want to see it more than when I first heard about it? No, not really. I mean, honestly, the one thing that I found interesting about this, because I'm watching the trailer, and it's like there's one person in the trailer who like really stood out to me. And it's like wow, he looks familiar. And then I went back and that's why I wanted to IMDb it like right after the trailer. And the guy who's playing the Razor Fist character, it's Florian Montanu or whatever, or Matanu, and he's the one who played Victor Drago in Creed 2. And I was able to recognize that by just looking at it, like, oh, that's who I think it is. And it's like, yes, that's who it is. That's about the most intriguing thing about that I got out of this trailer. I will be curious to see how it ties into the Mandarin and the Ten Rings and everything else. It will. I don't know. I don't know how this movie is going to play here. I don't know. There seems to be some pushback over. I mean, it doesn't seem like the interest overseas right now is as strong as you would expect. Maybe again because it's a westernized, kung fu movie. So maybe there's going to be natural pushback to China, who's certainly not the most open people or a market of all time. Not all by their choice necessarily as in the individuals there, but what the government does. But it just, I don't know. I don't feel strongly attached to this project. I just like the Eternals. I'm still more interested in this project than the Eternals, even though I will be willing to bet you when we finally get the first trailer for the Eternals, it will be much more interesting than this trailer. I do think it'll, at least visually, we'll have a lot of stuff to talk about when we finally get the first teaser, quote unquote, from the Eternals. Those are my real thoughts on it. It's not. I mean, I like Michelle Yeoh. I mean, I think I like her. So the cast, for the most part, leaving out the Awkwafina thing, I kind of like the cast. I can get a cool kind of vibe off the actors and actresses. I think it could be a fun movie, but it certainly did not amp up my enthusiasm for it. And if you're not either a fan of kung fu movies or the MCU to begin with, it's like, oh, it's an MCU movie. I don't know how well that was going to play to everybody else, the mainstream audience, if you will, doesn't fall into that category, or the fraction of the audience these days that isn't, at least an MCU fan. I mean, probably a smaller portion of kung fu fans. But if you don't fall into either one of those groups, I don't know if this teaser trailer alone would make you think, oh yeah, I have to go see this. But
I think I expect there to be some sort of a connection in the film to the MCU that we are aware of already, that we've seen.
And there probably will be, but you're right.
If I can finish real quick.
Sorry.
No, you're good. I just hope that there's more than one, because I want I think in terms of the trailers for this film, they need to put something in one of these trailers in the lead up to the release of this film that's going to make people go, oh, I recognize that character. Okay, I'll go see this movie. But then there'd be another, sort of character in the film that they also recognize that wasn't spoiled in the trailer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I want multiple touch points to the Marvel universe for two different reasons. And but I also kind of think it sucks that we, given the track record of the MCU, that we even need that to get people interested in this stuff. But I mean, at the same time, with the pandemic and everything that's gone on, we're sort of, everything was put on hiatus. And it's not to say that people forgot about the Marvel universe. It's just like, it wasn't hitting them as much anymore. One after the other, that they just came to expect. It's the Marvel movie of the year. I guess I'll go see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ties to the MCU are pretty important because of the fact when you really break it down, that again, this comes back to that decision they made with this release schedule, and it may very well, by luck of the draw, even if it's aided inadvertently and surprisingly by the pandemic, the fact that they made a really interesting choice of the first 3 movies in their Phase 4 slate. They had one movie with a character we all pretty much know and love, but it's a prequel. So the only thing that are going to come out of that, besides fleshing out her character more in Black Widow, is add in other elements of characters and things that we know are going to pay off now post Black Widow's death. But the actual events in that movie themselves are going to have no real value or stakes, because those were literally years ago in the past in the MCU, and we know she gets out fine because we know what happens to her. We know what her eventual fate is, and that's the character we know and love, and everybody else we know jack shit about. The Eternals are going to have ties to the MCU, but they're going to be, we don't even know when that movie takes place, and there's probably nothing in that movie that has direct ties. They'll have probably loose ties to things we've seen, but again, it's the tangibility of it is shaky. Then you have Shang-Chi, the same thing. We know it's going to tie into the 10 Rings, which ties into Iron Man and the Mandarin, but we don't know anything other than that, and we don't know, and we're not entirely sure of the time frame of when it takes place. And some people have said it takes place between Infinity War and Endgame. Either way, it's an interesting choice again to come up with, to launch 2 of these movies that are complete roll of the dice. Or rolls of the dice. It's like it's just shaky, but it may work out better for them than it would have normally, because people are just desperate for MCU stuff. So it may very well work out even better than it would have before. But it still was a really interesting decision when they could have at least had 2 of the 3 be things you knew people were interested in seeing, and then roll the dice on one of them. So I think the ties are important. I think because people are used to that. If for no other reason, people are used to that, this cohesive universe that, but even if things are out of order that we're getting, like we got in the MCU often, where certain movies take place in the past and other movies other movies that came out first actually take place later in the timeline, that the reality is we know they fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. And now it's like people are expecting that, and you're just kind of getting like 4 corner pieces or 3 corner pieces now. And it's like, you don't know how they're all going to connect together and where it's going to go.
Yeah.
So I agree. So I do agree with you that I think that having that connectivity, I think, is important, and I don't think it can be undervalued. That after all this time, do we need that? It's like, yeah, we need it because people expect it. And if you completely take the MCU in a different direction after the first 10 years, and I don't mean based on focal points of characters, because clearly we know they're doing that, but if you change the way you're storytelling, along with changing and pushing to the back burner so many of the characters that we know and spend time with, then that's doubling your risk. And it's like beating a dead horse. But eventually, Marvel is going to come up snake eyes, and it's not going to work. It's going to be craps, and it's going to end up being craps, and it's not. And it just has to happen. So It hasn't happened yet, but we know at some point it almost has.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
No, I think we got a lot out of this.
All right. Well, if people want to reach out to us, how do they do so?
LanternCast.com. The email is lanterncast@gmail.com. The voicemail is 708-LANTERN, so you can text or leave a voicemail to let us know what you think. Facebook, Twitter, use hashtag Geocast to track us down there. And last but not least, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Whichever platform or platforms you listen to us on, please leave us a positive review.
All right. And next week, what are we talking? Green Lantern number 2?
That is probably the plan, yes.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.